The picture is from USA, South Carolina, from Geddes Middle School. And I had the opportunity to visit STEM class or STEM workshop that the pupils were doing. And there were about 7 or 8 different workstations for the pupils, and they were doing different kinds of experiments, mainly physics, but also chemistry. And then I visited some schools in London and in Cambridge in United Kingdom, and saw similar kinds of activities there, and they had a strong focus on STEM education there also. And then I visited Barcelona with colleagues from Finnish teacher training schools, and saw some excellent examples of STEM education over there also. So this is internationally very, very important and very hot topic in education discussion. So it's very important to share some ideas with you about STEM education. I told you about our school system, but I'd like to add the path after upper secondary and vocational training. So everything starts in the preschool year, and then 6 years of primary school and 3 years in lower secondary school, and the basic education ends after the lower secondary school at the age of 16. And then usually at the age of 16 to 19, the students are in vocational training or upper secondary school. They can do both, but it usually takes 4 years. But you can have vocational training, you can have a profession, and do the studies in upper secondary school also, and have the matriculation exam after the upper secondary school studies. It's possible, but that's not very common. And after vocational training or upper secondary school, the students can apply to universities or universities of applied sciences. And you can go to university or University of Applied Sciences from upper secondary school or from vocational training. There are no dead ends in Finnish school system. Of course, it might be harder, more difficult to study in university after vocational training, because there are a lot less, for example, languages learned in vocational training than in upper secondary school. But it's possible to attend university after vocational training. A few words about science, technology, engineering, and math in our basic education. It's compulsory for every pupil in a way that it's part of many school subjects. Of course, math, I show you the amount of different subjects, how much of them are studied in basic education in a minute. But in addition to math, also physics, chemistry, biology, craft, and might be in some other subject also. For example, in history, we study history of engineering and technology, and I think it's valuable background information for somebody who wants to become, for example, an engineer. Learning objectives of these school subjects are defined in the curriculum, and as it said in the previous presentation also, the criteria for assessment is defined in the curriculum. There are no ability groups in math or in any other school subjects. They are forbidden. We are not allowed to form ability groups, the groups according to pupils' abilities. We try to have an inclusive school that every child can attend to school nearby, and we try to find ways to support the studies in the nearby schools. But because there are no ability groups, there are pupils with different kinds of abilities in the same group, of course. And it requires differentiation. It requires easier tasks, easier teaching methods for those pupils that have difficulties. And it requires special tasks, more demanding tasks for the pupils that are talented and the learning is easy. So within the group of pupils, we must differentiate the teaching, but not so that we form ability groups of the pupils. Does this raise any questions or comments? Okay, let's move on. Okay.
Just to quickly add one short note, it may be good for you to know also that we used to have the ability groups in the past, but as Pasi said, they don't exist any longer. And most people think that this is only good progress.
Yes. Sometimes in public discussion there are somebody who promotes the idea of ability groups, but in general we think that it's not desirable. When I was in middle school in 1980s, we still had those ability groups, but not after that. They were abandoned, I think, in the beginning of 1990s. Here are the number of lessons per week in different subjects, and on the brownish background there are the subjects that most closely are linked to the STEM education. In lower secondary schools, the pupils have about 30 lessons per week, as you can see on the right hand side. And of those 30 lessons per week, on 7th grade, 3 lessons are math and 2 are biology and geography, 2 are physics and chemistry, and 3 are craft. And then there are quite a lot of math, or together combined 11 courses or 11 lessons per week during the lower secondary school. And craft is compulsory only on 7th grade in lower secondary school. In primary school, it's compulsory on every grade, but in lower secondary school, it's compulsory only on 7th grade. But pupils can choose it as an optional subject on 8th and 9th grade. And usually there is a group for craft also, but the most popular optional subject is home economics, which means that they learn to cook and learn to clean and take care of home at those lessons. That's quite popular. Is there anything you'd like to ask? Is there something that catches your eye in this table? Okay, let's move on. Some words about pedagogics in STEM context. I think it's very important to remember that the pupils not only learn knowledge in school. They also have to learn skills. And this especially goes with the STEM subjects. There's a lot of skills involved in math, logical thinking, and doing your calculations, but also in physics and in chemistry. The skills are something that you learn also, not only knowledge but also skills. How to work safe, how to experiment and stuff like that. And in craft also, that's mainly about skills. So pedagogically, we should not concentrate only on the knowledge, but also to the skills. And we in our school, we have very powerfully developed experimenting culture in STEM subjects. For example, in physics and chemistry, we try to learn everything through experiments and observing the experiments and then drawing conclusions of those experiments. Not just read from a book how some chemicals are formed or how they are reacting to each other, but trying. Let's put these chemicals together and see what happens and observe and make some conclusions from those from those things that we observe. Of course, we have to take security issues very closer to concern, because we don't want pupils to blow the school up or themselves or anything like that. But our teachers are very good in guiding the pupils to work in a safe way. But that's something we take very seriously. Then one thing we think is important in the way that we work pedagogically is problem solving, not just by yourself, but in groups. The teacher gives some kind of problem, and the pupils try to cooperate to solve that problem. And then if they don't get it, they can't solve the problem, then teacher can intervene and give them some kind of advice or hints to what direction they should go and try to find the answer. Because that way the teacher will have more face-to-face time with those pupils that find it very difficult to learn. Because those who don't find it very difficult, they are solving the problems together, and then the teachers can focus on the pupils that it's hardest for them to learn. And that's one important thing that we can provide support for our weaker students, for those students that find it harder to learn something. We use ICT, of course, and we try to keep up with the ICT development. And just last spring, we spent about 15,000 euros to purchase new ICT gear for physics and chemistry teaching. Well, I talked about the continuous assessment for learning, so I don't get into that for the second time, but I think that's important in STEM context also, that the pupils should get response. They should get feedback of their learning. We have optional courses in math, physics, and chemistry, and they are mainly meant for pupils that are trying to go or want to go to upper secondary school. So they are quite. So the optional courses in math, physics, and chemistry are quite demanding, but usually the pupils that choose those optional courses are quite interested in these subjects. And the last point here, we must use or remember also in STEM context the transversal learning objectives. We must train the pupils, their thinking and learning skills, and try to cover these important topics that are in the picture on the right hand, also in STEM context. There is ICT competence that's evident, but also entrepreneurship is quite important in my opinion, and I have a couple of slides or 2 slides at the end of this presentation about that. Participation, influence, sustainable future. There are many important topics in those transversal learning objectives that we should promote in STEM education also. Is there anything you'd like to ask or comment about this? Okay. A few words about science, technology, engineering, and math after basic education. In upper secondary school, the students can choose either common or advanced math syllabus. And usually those studying common math syllabus study more languages and for example, social studies or history. But if you choose advanced math syllabus, you usually study more STEM subjects, physics and chemistry. Those usually go together. And you see the number of courses in the table. In upper secondary school, the student has to take 75 courses minimum. Yeah, usually during 3 years, but it also can take 4 years. And if you choose the common or basic math, there are 5 compulsory courses and two national specializations courses, and then on top of that we have 3 special courses in our school. But if you choose advanced math, there are 9 compulsory courses and 3 national special courses, and on top of that we have in our school 6 special courses. So out of 75 courses that they have to have minimum, there is 18 courses of math if you choose advanced math, because usually the students that choose advanced math, they take all those courses. And then usually they also study physics and chemistry. So if you combine advanced math and physics and chemistry, it takes quite a large portion of the total of 75 courses. And there is no strict numbers about how many students in upper secondary school are studying advanced math, because it changes. The student can change from advanced to basic math if the student wants. But on the right hand side, the diagram shows how many students have taken math test in matriculation exam, which is taken after the upper secondary school. And last year, 2019, about 82% of the students who took matriculation exam took math exam there, and about 40% of them took common or basic math, and then about about a little over 40% took advanced math test. And the thing that explains why most students took math tests, well, I'll tell you in a minute. In vocational training, there are 6 credits that the student has to take STEM subjects, math, physics, and chemistry. Usually it's divided in 3 or 4 credits, math, and then the rest is physics or chemistry. So that's not very much, but this is for all students in vocational training, not depending on their branch. So they might be studying to become electrician or hairdresser. They all has to take 6 credits. But then I think it would be important for electrician to take, for example, physics courses in vocational also, but it might be not that important for the hairdresser. The hairdresser would, well, I think chemistry would be more useful in that profession. So the rest depends on the profession, but everybody has to take 6 credits. And here's the thing that explains the popularity of math test in the matriculation exam. It's very, very important in applying to university. This has changed, and this has been one hot topic in Finnish education discussion in the last years, but not at the present, because the change took place about 2 years ago. But if you want to study law in the university, you get 36.1% of your points from the advanced math matriculation exam. So you get more points to study law from math than from Finnish language or English language. If you want to study history, you get more points from advanced math exam than from history exam. Or if you want to study English in university, you get more points from advanced math than you get from English language. And some people have criticized this very heavily, because if you want to study history or English, is the advanced math more important than English or history? That's a question that we have discussed quite eagerly during the last several years. But that's the thing that explains why the math test is so popular. The students know that it's very important to have the math grade in matriculation exam if they want to apply to university. But there are worrying signs that this weakens, for example, language studies, because more pupils choose advanced math, even though they might not need it in their future work, or they are not so interested in that, or not so talented in that. So they have to skip, for example, languages. Everyone in Finland studies at least 3 languages in school. Finnish, and everybody has to study Swedish, because that's our second official language. And then almost everybody studies English, but you can, instead of English, you can study also French or German, or, for example, Spanish, but usually English. So everybody has to study Finnish, Swedish, and English, but many do, on top of that, many do study also, for example, German or French in our school. But if they choose advanced math, they might have to skip the language, even though it might be useful. And Finnish is very very odd language. It's very hard to learn, and there are only 5.5 million people in the whole world that speak Finnish. So if we want to cooperate and have some kind of relations internationally, we have to know some other language than Finnish. And I think that's very important, and that's one downside of the popularity of the math system. In universities, science education and STEM education has taken big steps forward in recent years. This year, in May the 1st, the first professor of science education began her work in University of Helsinki, our capital. She is Maija Aksela, and that's the citation on the second dot here is, in my opinion, quite interesting. That's citation what Maija Aksela has said when she accepted the post as a professor of science education. The impact of each individual teacher lasts roughly a century, 100 years. First during their own activity and then later on through their former pupils and students. It's very important for teachers to have the most recent knowledge of the fields of science and how to provide instruction on them. This is one sign of the importance that we feel about STEM education in every school level, be it basic education or upper secondary level or higher education. There's a link to the news, and you'll find more information through that. In our own university, in University of Oulu, we just started secondary subject of 25 study credits for teacher students, and it is meant to be expanded to consist of 35 study points or study credits in the future. And they will concentrate on STEAM education, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I think that's a big step for our university to acknowledge the importance of this field. There are also some other projects that we've had in our university. STEAM in Oulu collects multidisciplinary projects for schools. We have to provide at least one multidisciplinary project per year for our pupils, and they are gathering the good practices or good ideas about that. And then there are multiple courses for in-service teachers about STEM education. And the robotics competition picture is there for a reason. That's a prize that pupils from our school won when they attended the World Championship tournament in US. And we've had very eager and enthusiastic group of pupils that have built their own robots and programmed them and try to compete with other schools. And there are some teachers that are doing excellent work with the pupils on that field to make that idea a business and a product you can sell or use for something. And I think that's a part of good pedagogy in every lesson. You can train pupils on every lesson to come up with new ideas and evaluate new ideas and find to explain others the new ideas and so on. Those are skills you need if you plan to sell a new idea or product for someone. We also have working life periods in lower secondary school. They spend about 2 weeks in working life periods during the classes from 7 to 9. And then there's some projects in Finland. A year as an entrepreneur, they have their own student companies that they plan and they work in for a year, and there are many excellent ideas in those student companies. One of our pupils won the national award as the best student company about 3 or 4 years ago, and she produced and sold hobby horses, so play horses, and that was something quite extraordinary. We have resource centers around the country called Yes Centers that help teachers to apply entrepreneurial education, and then there's Finnish innovation, Me and My City, or in Finnish is roughly interpreted to English, it's entrepreneurial village, where 6th and 9th graders go and work for a day in different companies. You can find more info about that from the link at the bottom of the page. But I think this is a valuable thought. What is the link of the entrepreneurship education to STEAM, and what should we do about that? This is my last slide, because I'd really like to hear something that you are doing concerning STEM education, but I also would like to hear your questions if you have gathered them ready. We have about 10 minutes, and want to go and spend the weekend after hard week's work. But please.
Mr. Pasi?
Okay.
Так, сейчас, секунду. Был единственный вопрос, который у нас был в чате, сейчас я его продублирую еще раз, и дальше мы перейдем к вопросам из социальных сетей.
Okay.
Первое, ваши государственные органы в школах, и делается ли это вообще в целях соблюдения, на предмет соблюдения основных правил работы в школе, или как это у вас процесс проходит? Я смог правильно задать вопрос? Насколько часто государственные органы, которые ответственны за сферу образования, а также за работу школ, устраивают проверки непосредственно работы самой школы, и насколько часто у вас это происходит?
So, do I understand correctly? You are asking how frequently we have some kind of inspection or state officials coming to our schools and.
Да, совершенно верно.
Yeah, okay. We don't have that.
Да,
Next question. No, I can explain. We used to have inspectors back in 1970s, I think, or might be 1980s. But there are no outside inspection in schools in Finland, and hasn't been for tens of years, because Finnish school system is built on trust, and it depends on trust. So we, as I said, when I talked about curriculum, we have quite a lot of freedom to decide for ourselves how we carry out the curriculum. And if, for example, if some parent thinks that we are not doing it correctly, we have authorities that they can contact, and the authorities can ask us what we are doing and is everything okay. But they are not doing any frequent inspections or anything like that. That's about all I have to say about this question.
Спасибо огромное. Подскажите, пожалуйста, мистер Паси, вопрос из социальных сетей, кстати, из Фейсбука. Насколько STEM образование, он идет, интегрируется с другими предметами на каком уровне? Потому что, ну, я просто хочу сказать, в сравнении с нашей казахстанской системой, у нас отдельного предмета STEM в школах нету. Есть физика, есть химия, есть биология, ну, другие моменты. Но просто единственное, есть STEM-подход, конечно, в преподавании, когда интегрируется несколько разных предметов вокруг одного проекта, либо вокруг одной темы. Но как такового отдельного предмета нет. Есть, конечно, вариативы, есть отдельные кружки по этой теме. Как у вас с этим обстоит?
Yeah, we also have separate subjects. Let me go back in my presentation. We don't have anything called STEM as a subject, but it's covered in these school subjects that I have on brown background. We do have optional courses in our school that are they have a STEM topic and they are combined math, physics, and chemistry. But that's just in our school. That's not a national subject. But the STEM field or area is covered in different school subjects, and it sounds that it's quite like you have.
С какого класса начинается изучение иностранных языков в финских школах? Наш следующий вопрос с Фейсбука.
Thank you. Well, that's one current topic more. We haven't covered. Excellent question. We just started teaching our A language, which is the main foreign language, usually English, but can be also French or German or Spanish or some other language, but usually English. We just started teaching English from the first grade, so in 7 years of age. It used to be third grade in 9 years of age, but nowadays it's from the first grade.
Спасибо огромное. И также касательно вопросов о профессиях и навыках будущего. В Казахстане очень много полемики касательно тех навыков, которые пригодятся специалистам 21 века, особенно тем людям, которые родились после 2000-х годов, ввиду очень сильного развития именно технологий и информационно-коммуникационных технологий в частности. Так вот, есть ли в ваших школах определенный предмет, помимо информатики, который дает глубокие знания, либо хотя бы поверхностные знания в таких сферах, как искусственный интеллект, либо большие данные, либо вот такие приближенные к IT-сфере темы, но которые сейчас у нас в Казахстане, по крайней мере, изучаются непосредственно профессионалами в рамках вузов, либо колледжей?
Yes, we don't have separate compulsory subject about ICT things, but the programming is part of math curriculum. So the programming is taught in math lessons. And then we have in basic education, we have ICT usually as an optional subject, and that is the case in our own school also. We at the present we have 2 optional groups studying ICT. And then, well, that sounded familiar, but when you told that you have specialists in higher education institutions teaching ICT, I think that's the same case in Finland.
И последний вопрос касательно инклюзии. Вы сегодня уже затронули эту тему, но я все же задам этот вопрос снова. Именно финляндские школы. Есть ли у вас в Финляндии отдельные школы для детей с особыми потребностями, либо они учатся со всеми вместе в обычных финских школах? Как у вас этот вопрос обстоит? И вторая часть вопроса, делятся ли ваши классы на условные, на одаренные классы, на средних и на отстающие классы, либо у вас одаренные дети, которые с развитым уровнем мышления учатся во всех классах. То есть нет ли у вас отдельных групп в школе, которых вы делите как сильный класс, условно класс А, класс Б, класс С?
Thank you. We don't have ability groups. They are forbidden. We don't divide the pupils to different groups according to their abilities. We try to work as an inclusive school that every pupil can study with all the other pupils and as we discussed this earlier, and as Dr. Raimo said, that we used to have ability groups, but not anymore, not for at least 30 years. And the first question was about special schools. We do have special schools, and in my opinion, we do need some special schools, because needs of some pupils are so special that we can't respond to them in ordinary schools, and therefore it's right that we have certain special schools for the children with special needs. But the number of special schools has diminished very quickly during the last 10 years. So the seats or the places to study in special schools have gone down nearly or about 50% during the last 10 years. There are a lot less special schools than there was 10 years ago, but there are still some.
Замечательно. И у нас также есть вопрос от Алмаза Урдабаева.
Да, спасибо. Мистер Паси, Алмаз Урдабаев говорит. Я когда был в Оулу, мы посетили занятия в начальной школе и заметили, что практически на всех занятиях присутствуют 2 учителя, причем разных профилей. В частности, были на уроке математики, где вторым учителем был учитель физкультуры. И он помогал основному учителю давать обратную связь детям. Я так понимаю, он мог разобраться в заданиях, потому что это была начальная школа. И наблюдал удивительную картину. Ребенок позади положил книгу с ответом, но при этом не смотрел на ответ и постоянно ходил за обратной связью. И когда я не понимал финский, но я понял по жестам, когда учитель сказал, что все в порядке, вы решили задание, он тогда пошел, посмотрел правильный ответ, сверился. И это меня настолько удивило, что дети понимают смысл смысл обучения, что в первую очередь это ребенку самому нужно. И я так понимаю, что это вот co-teaching, так называемый, да, наличие второго учителя способствует развитию осознанности ребенка, важности обучения для него. Извините за долгий вопрос, но я тогда задумался, как вы регулируете трудовую нагрузку второго учителя? Ведь это означает, что учитель физкультуры помимо своих основных занятий ходит еще и на математику, например. Школа должна за это дополнительно доплачивать. Как вы это регулируете? Спасибо.
It depends on the arrangements. We try to encourage the teachers to cooperate. So they might work in pairs. That's quite common especially in primary school. So there might be two groups of pupils and 2 or 3 teachers who are assigned to work with those pupils. It might be that there are 2 classroom teachers and then 1 special education teacher. And the classroom teachers work with the children on daily basis, and then the special education teacher is coming to work with those pupils for some lessons or some day in a week. And the payment for the teachers is defined by the lessons that they teach. So the amount of work they do is counted as lessons per week. And if we assign, for example, if there are 2 groups of pupils and 2 teachers, if we assign a 3rd teacher to that to work with those, we define how many hours per week the 3rd teacher works with those other teachers and those groups, and then it's part of the 3rd teacher's salary.